Who's there? What was that noise you just made?
What are you even doing up?
I thought we had a break-in.
What were you gonna do? Give him the funk?
I was gonna hit him in the face and then say, "Sax to be you."
That actually would have been dope.
Keenan, man, listen to you, brother. After Corey passed, you can't move on at all.
Does Keenan need an extra set of hands to help with the girls? Sure. That's why Papa Rick's here.
I gotta go to work. Can you do the dishes?
Oh, I don't know.
Good morning, Atlanta.
Starting today, we're covering hard news.
You want to be a serious news guy now? Just remember the 3 Ds. Deny, deflect, blame, Dwayne, defrost.
Now that's chicken. Oh, I forgot my wallet.
In Florida?
Yes.
Come here, babies. You know I'm about that hug life?
Just in time for the hug.
Keenan, Season 1, Saturday on SABC2.
Hi, I'm Johnny Clegg, and I'm discovering the extraordinary landscapes in South Africa that have long played muse to artists, writers, musicians and dancers.
Ek wil eendag een van die bestes is.
It's very important that we come back to basics. That's what it's all about, I think.
This week I'm travelling through the golden light of the Free State. It's a painter's paradise. Past its vast, graceful farmlands and lyrical sandstone koppies. From ancient artworks nestled in gentle overhangs. It was a bit skrikkerig for me first time. To those more carefully hidden.
Threw away the pocket knife and the tin can, and I said, well, I'm going to put myself in the mountains and I must use what they would have used.
From the haven of a tiny grotto church to an immense spiritual cave.
Aziki Pogila.
I'll be following this radiant trail of space and spirit. Land is such a central theme in the Free State, and in so many ways it defines existence in these parts. This area of the country is largely farmland, South Africa's granary, fields of grain, silos and wind pumps and fruit orchards. Cattle and sheep graze abundant pastures. This is rich and fertile land, and it's an area defined by abundant space and huge skies, and its distinctive and amazingly lovely sandstone mountains. But there's another aspect to how land exists here. Land in the Free State holds a kind of spiritual dimension. People don't live on the land, they live through it. And artists who represent it tend to follow suit. And they give us something very special in the way they represent it. They write and paint and they photograph their visions of it, and they give us something very special. They capture an essence beyond the obvious. There's a softness and gentleness about this land, in spite of the profound space in this huge sky, and also in spite of its sometimes violent history, because many different groups laid claim to the land as their home, often at tremendous human cost. This is Bloemfontein, the capital of the Free State, and a good starting point for our journey. Bloemfontein literally means fountain of flowers, or flower spring in Dutch. And the story is that a Dutch farmer by the name of Johannes Nicolaas Brits stumbled upon a little spring down below, surrounded by flowers, and decided to make it his farm and his home. and he called it Bloemfontein, Het Fontein van Blomme. This painting by Alexander Podleshuk is on the site of this original fountain of Bloemfontein, today more an overgrown concrete jungle than a fountain of flowers. Although historically a predominantly Afrikaner settlement, Bloemfontein was officially founded in 1846 as a British fort and outpost by Army Major Henry Douglas Warden in what was then Trans-Oranje. And the region was populated by Cape Colony Trekboers, Griquas and Basotho. Although romanticized in certain ways, paintings by Thomas Baines from 1851 give us a sense of what this early settlement must have looked like. A sparsely established town with occasional European Khoi or Griqua dwellings. The foreboding stance of the vulture, wings spread, purveying the new settlement down below, was indeed well founded. For all of these groups in the region came to blows at one time or another. The British, the Boers, the Basotho, the Botswana, the Griqua, the San and the Khoi also long before them, but perhaps most violently during the South African War from 1899 till 1902, when in 1900 the British captured the town and erected a huge concentration camp around the outskirts to house Boer women and children. This striking monument was designed by Pretoria-based architect Frans Soff and sculpted by renowned sculptor Anton van Vaux. The National Women's Memorial, just outside the city, pays homage to more than 26,000 Boer, Basotho and Griqua women and children, and over 1,400 old men who lost their lives in the terrible camps right across the country during the war. A total of about 42 concentration camps in all. These plaques commemorate all the lives lost across the country in the concentration camps. Artist Willem Boshoff, who through his grandparents has a direct family link to this terrible history and has produced some really hard-hitting works dealing with the loss of life in the camps. These works, from his poignant series of photographs, document the graves of those who died in the war, especially in the concentration camps. This image pans the extensive, uniform lines of graves of Boer women, children and the elderly at the bottom end of the South African War Cemetery at Springfontein. The black grave markers at the top end are those of British soldiers. This work, also by Boshoff, represents the layout of the same cemetery. Boshoff used soil and gravel collected from the Springfontein site to create the base structure for the work. To honor his grandmother, a survivor of the Krugersdorp concentration camp, Boshoff made the graves of the Boer women and children from red sand he scooped up from the site. The British soldiers' graves are made up here of waste sand from a Johannesburg gold mine dump, because he says that the greed for gold and land was the cause of the Anglo-Boer War. Ongoing questions of land ownership and provenance still resonate today in the art of local artists. Bloemfontein-based artist and lecturer at the University of the Free State, Jaco Spies, has explored these themes in his work for some time. His ancestor, a Boer war general, was given land for his contribution during the Basotho Wars, and Jaco explores this legacy and the idea of land as currency in this animation of a koppie or small hill called Spitskop.
It's actually a work that consists of 40 different animations playing off together in one scene. As soon as one of the pieces of animation finishes, it plays backwards and then starts playing again, and that has the effect that the landscape picture that you see will never look the same. And that has implications for me of how our landscape changes regarding land ownership, possession,
yes,
redistribution of land and so on.
Okay.
It's very important that I engage with these issues, and I had to deal with them. I had to look into the past. I had to search for answers.
Yes.
For what I'm doing here and where I'm going.
Right.
Yeah.
The long history of dispossession, which is the legacy of this country and of this area, still plays itself out in tragic and desperate ways. Pauline Guter, another artist based outside Bloemfontein, also deals with the charged issue of land ownership, but in a much more emotive way. As the daughter of a Free State cattle farmer, she has a deep-rooted passion for the landscape. Working in oil on canvas, she represents farmers as helpless cattle and alludes to the chilling frequency of farm murders that occur here. These darkly evocative paintings hone in on the vulnerability felt by many local farmers.
Hi, my name is Vaughan Lucas. I play the character Quinton Malchus on SABC2's new telenovela Paradise. It is about a small coloured community and the families that rule it, the Boysons and the Malchus. Quinton is your good boy. He tries to please Daddy, even though he knows that Daddy is not such a good guy. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
Hierdie week op Lofprysing, David Jantjies deel hoe belangrik vergifnis vir elke gelowige is. Kenilwe Hope encourages us to rejoice in the forgiveness of God.
So that I can glorify you, so that Christ can be evident to people that indeed He heals broken hearts.
Lofprysing, Sunday morning, 10:30 on 2.
This rock formation is appropriately named Tuintjiesberg, which means Little Teeth Mountain. As we've come to know throughout the country, the San were the first inhabitants, and they left us a great legacy of their history in the form of rock paintings and engravings. The Free State is especially rich in extraordinary examples of this art form. And this is because the abundance of caves and rock overhangs, which are part of the Free State sandstone mountain terrain. And the Bushmen made huge use of this and returned over centuries, sometimes to the same locations, building up these extraordinary visual histories. All sand rock art in South Africa have been declared national heritage sites But this particular one is one of 12 national monuments to rock art, because there are over 530 individual depictions of various subjects on these walls. Up here we see a depiction of cattle which have been carbon dated to more than 500 years old. So we know that the San first met pastoralists at that time, and historically from other paintings we know that this caused a lot of conflict. Here we have a depiction of medicine dance and a beautiful eland. And one of my favorites is this elephant. And as we know that in the Free State there were never any elephants, it's clear that many different clans and families and groupings of San living in different parts of South Africa passed through here and left a record of their experiences on the wall here for us to admire. Sadly, if not protected, these places are often vandalized, and together with the natural processes of weathering, the legacy of these ancient histories are slowly disappearing. However, there are a few passionate individuals intent on preserving the integrity of the original works by trying to match the technology of paint that was used in the past.
What happened was I became fascinated with technology.
Okay.
In other words, pigments, paints and implements. How were these things made and collected? And many years ago, probably nearly 20 years ago, I threw away the pocket knife and the tin can and the plastic container, and I said, well, I'm going to put myself in the mountains and I must use what they would have used. So hence you see horns here,
yes.
You see ostrich eggshell. We all know that
yes.
Ostrich eggshell used to as a holding. So I had to go back to basics. I had to start thinking like a bushman or like a San painter.
Yeah.
And that was a fascinating journey, and that's what's kept me kept me in the bush.
In the fire there I see those stones. What are those stones used for?
They're heating stones, and I would take them out of the fire
yes.
and use them in the paint making process. In other words, what I've got here is a piece of fat.
Yes. Okay.
The fat would have been one of the binders that the San painter would have used. Let me just show you out of this horn here.
Yeah.
If you open the palm of your hand, here's a bit of red ochre.
Yes.
Now that's a wonderful pigment. The permanence of that, that's light fast. I've done tests for years and years under direct sunlight,
yes.
various weathering processes, and it retains its colour.
Yes.
It's a beautiful fine red.
Yes.
When you want to split on your hand, you can, and then just rub it in there. But now rub that. Okay, now you're already starting to make a paint.
And it's very rich. The colour is incredible.
Okay. Now if you let that dry,
right, and
rain fell on that, it would over time wash right off your hand. You need a binding agent. You need to take this fat, you put it on a heating stone like that.
Right.
And if I rub that now, you can see there, it'll start to give off that nice juice.
Yes.
That we want, okay? One can use that, and then also in this horn here I've got some egg.
Right.
Okay, you can put a bit of egg on that. You can also mix that.
Yes.
I don't know if you would like me to do this, but it's
sure. I don't mind.
That's a bit of my blood.
Your blood?
Yeah, so blood's a wonderful agent for emulsifying fat.
We
so
are now blood brothers.
You know, I hadn't thought of it like that. That's a good way of looking at it. Now, this is a brush I've made myself.
Okay. Out of natural materials?
Out of natural materials. If I take it and I pull that across this rock here.
Yes.
Okay. I'm able to draw a line.
Wow.
A paint line.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Look at that.
The ingredients that we've made now is actually a very strong paint. We've got fat, we've got egg, blood, saliva, and that binds the particles, the powder particles together, and it also binds them to the rock.
To the rock, okay.
And if we have the consistency right, like that's not too thick, it will actually penetrate the rock. So it penetrates the particular structure of the rock. Go to a site and you'll see the red paintings are visible, whereas others might be fading away. Whereas
red is the dominant colour.
Is a dominant colour because it's sucked into the rock.
Okay. The San as a people were deeply bound and connected to the land and to nature. For example, if the land was barren, it was believed the woman would be barren, and it would take rain to kickstart the menstrual cycle. They were also connected to nature, all living things. This particular cave has some really clear and remarkable depictions of shamans in trance. Here is one bent over with the head of a ribak, and here's a really beautiful one of a shaman with a rhino head. It is believed that if the shaman would urinate, it would diminish the power of the connection to the spirit animal that he was connected to. So there's a little cross over his male member there. Here's a really stunning depiction of an eland, which actually uses the contours of the rock to give it a three-dimensional shape. The first sand arrowheads were made out of stone and then later bone. And then further on down the line, through trade with nearby tribes who could extract metals from rock, they got iron arrowheads. And we have here sharpening marks where arrows were sharpened. There's straight lines going down here, little grooves all over. So this was obviously an arrow sharpening point for the original occupants of the cave.
I've made my way to the largest country in Southeast Asia, incredible Indonesia. Home to stunning beaches, epic volcanoes, vast mountains, and dense rainforests.
This is the beef rendang, the favorite.
Wow, 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 wow.
The challenge. You cook your style, rendang.
Yes.
I cook the local ways here.
You're 73 now.
73.
And you're still competitive. You want to challenge for a rendang cook-off at the end of the week. I would love that.
Okay.
You are on.
Remember, never do rendang in the quick way.
I'm not rushing this rendang.
Gordon Ramsay Uncharted, Sunday at 5 on S3.
Well, look at us. Drink Masters, the first ever top 5. Only 4 people in this bar stand between you and the title of Ultimate Drink Master. Please help me welcome Tiffany Barrier.
Yeah. One thing I love most about this profession is being a mentor for up-and-coming bartenders. It's so great to discover a person finding their passion.
For this challenge, we want you to make a spicy cocktail that tells us something about the fire and spice that motivates you.
Wash your hand before you touch your eyes, guys.
I love this challenge because spicy cocktails are popping right now.
Drink Masters, Thursday at 7, S3. Open up.
The Eastern Free State is characterized by a great diversity of microclimates and vegetation. Here in the Koranenberg, we find sweetveld mixed with montane vegetation, which attracts a different grouping of birds, insects and wildlife. I'm about to see some very different rock art paintings in a cave down below. They have not been seen by many people and never before captured on camera. So this is an exciting first. The only way down is to abseil. Another exciting, if slightly nerve-wracking, first for me. Yeah, it was a bit skrikkerig for me first time. Just that little jump off the ledge. Now the San were not the only ones who left their mark on the rocky landscape. The Korana Khoi, also known as the Abatule, settled here near Excelsior during the early 1800s, and they also left clues of their cultural history through their vivid finger paintings. The Korana originally lived along the banks of the Garib among the Nama herders and the San hunter-gatherers. They became well-armed bandits, rustling cattle and sheep from their neighbors, much in the style of the Wild West. They were very good horsemen, and they knew the value of keeping their horses in peak condition. and they raided the farms to the south of the Gariep. They would expertly round up cattle and booty and make a quick getaway into the wooded hills around the Gariep. Today, the Korana have completely disappeared as a separate group, having assimilated into other communities. Whereas the San used fine implements to draw onto the rock, the Korana used finger painting. They also either learned from the San or discovered it in their own way, this ochre pigment, and also a manner in which to make it stick and last onto the rock. Much of the Korana painting that researchers are aware of depict horse imagery and men with guns. These are usually references to European colonists. And these figures that we see here with their hands on their hips could be referring to a European way of standing. We're in the quaint artist village of Roosendaal in the Eastern Free State with Della Halm. She's a sculptor and a furniture maker who uses found industrial objects and animal skulls in all her artwork. What does this have to do with landscape, you may wonder? Well, quite a lot in fact, because she collects and works with old discarded farming implements and machinery which come out of this surrounding landscape.
When I decided to come and live in Roosendaal, which was just a mad idea, which worked out well. Obviously, when you get to a new place, you go and travel and see what's around. And I started seeing all these beautiful farm implements, and I like engineering and I like shapes, and I saw all these shapes and they were dumping them. And I decided, well, let's do something with it, because in 5 or 10 or even 3 years, there's not going to be any. So I started doing small little things, and it just grows. As your skills grow, you started doing bigger and bigger things. But I love the shape of farm implements. Not only the shape, but I like where it comes from, what it did, the influence it had on our lives, on landscape. It's almost like a memorial. It's like doing a sculpture of something that has made a difference in our lives. Cattle, I mean, the influence it had on our life. And it's almost like, thank you. You know, let's do something with this. I think it's very important that we come back to basics, because that's what it's all about, I think.
Della is not the only artist who's been moved by the impact of cattle on the landscape. Here in Roosendaal, Willem Pretorius creates these quirky cow sculptures out of scrap metal, which is a paradox because real cattle are valuable. Hey Willem.
Hallo Johnny.
Hoe aan het?
Goed, dankie.
Baden. Willem also paints the vast landscapes that he's surrounded by. He vividly captures the pale liquid greens, yellows and pinks of the fields and mountains, set off subtly against the grey blue of the skies. Before actually driving through the Free State, when I saw paintings from here, I thought the bright colours were just an act of the artist's imagination. But driving through here, you can see the deep greens, and off the cliffs, deep red and yellow and orange. The sky can be either a bright deep blue or a steely blue. The grass has got this beautiful deep yellow, and this is actually an act of the light here. The light is very forgiving and gentle. It's a painter's paradise. Yet another Roosendaal artist Michelle Negrini, who also captures this extraordinary light, surprises us by bringing in bold, fresh, juicy splashes of color to animate these often dry landscapes, like bright, playful gems or quirky alien invaders. Architect and skillful watercolorist John Edgar is based in Ladybrand and uses a delicate rainbow palette to paint the elegant koppies and plains around Ladybrand. He also captures this incredible golden Free State light. Like Spitskop, the small typical Free State koppie that we saw outside of Bloemfontein, these natural iconic features occur all over the Free State landscape and they're favoured subjects for many painters. This one, near the cherry capital of South Africa, Vicksburg, was painted by Cape painter Gregoire Bunzaya in 1954. And this koppie, for example, near Fourierburg, majestically portrayed by J.H. Pierneef.
There's a lot of indoors that are around South Africa. There are soccer schools that have started it already. My name is Kyle Kurt. I'm the captain of Orlando Pirates 5s and I'm an attacking player. We need to get into grassroots, you know, get into where there's no indoor facilities, where there's no soccer schools. And I think the only way we can help is if it starts from the top, like your SAFA, your PSL.
As much as 11-a-side, you know, you do get your technical players, but everything comes from futsal. Everything comes from 5-a-side. My name is Alzavian van Reere, better known as Coach Xavi, coach of Orlando Pirates 5s.
Gerald Edwards, known as Lee, coach of Orlando Pirates 5s. If you look at the 11-a-side, you look at a longer period. Where it comes to the small-sided game, we condition them in shortest times.
On this side here, it's more of a family that is, you know, a small family. A small family where you don't have to break so many hearts. 11-a-side, the 11 players love you, the guys on the bench, they're okay with you, but the guys in the stands don't like you as a coach.
We're opening up doors where 11-a-side player maybe couldn't make it 11-side, but you know, yeah, you could come and play for Pirates 5s and be a professional player at what you love and do. My name's Conrad Witter and I'm the team manager of Orlando Pirates 5s. We're obviously doing the right thing, you know, we hopefully we can look after some other talent that come through the ranks, especially development, and we need the development, you know.
SABC Sport is everywhere for everyone. Stay tuned for action from all over Mzansi for the love of the game.
We're on the road to Thaba Nchu, about 60 kilometers east of Bloemfontein. The Tswana people migrated here in the 1830s, but were frequently attacked during the 19th century tribal wars called the Defakane. And so, working on the principle that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, they found themselves allied with the Voortrekkers against the Basotho. Later, Chief Moroka of the Tswana allied himself with the British during the Battle of Hale in 1852 against King Moshoeshoe. Someone who works very hard to foster creative relations is Richard Letsatsi Bolas, an accomplished artist who teaches young talent at the Mmabana Cultural Center here in Thaba Nchu. Originally from the West Indies, he now calls Thaba Nchu his home. Morning, Richard.
Hi, Johnny. Morning. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
It's a pleasure.
What is it about the Free State landscapes that you particularly like?
The color range.
Color range. Okay.
You have the greens from the plants that they plant in here. The sunflower, the wheat. You have the yellows, the brown, the earth colors. It's amazing. It really gives you quite a palette to work with. The other thing about it is that the scenery changes during the day. You hear at a particular time and you see it looks like this, and then around lunchtime, you see something completely different. So
the light changes.
The light changes beautiful.
What's the most rewarding thing for you working at the cultural center?
I found a very brilliant student. He was actually working in the mines.
After a month of studying under Richard, Motsiokai Klas Tibeletsa resigned from his job on the mine and is now an award-winning painter. These beautiful pastels by another one of Richard's pupils, Likoro Libakeng, intuitively capture the spirit of this area.
We're all born with talents. The thing is try to nurture it in a way that you give back to the community.
The thing about small Free State towns is that because everybody's living in such a close proximity to one another, it's very hard to remain anonymous. Everybody's business is everybody's business. Not much is secret or sacred. And so I'm intrigued to find out a little more. We're in the tiny town of Tweespruit, about 30 kilometers from another tiny town called Excelsior, both of which for their size have received a lot of attention over the years, mainly for creative reasons. This little church behind me is where one of the Free State's most beloved veteran artists lived and worked. He was known as the painting priest, Father Frans Klaarhout. Klaarhout was a self-taught painter of landscapes and figures, and an expressionist at heart. His oil paintings bore his signature of thickly layered, earthy paint and strong, dry brushstrokes. He worked among the impoverished Tweespruit communities and surrounding areas, always encouraging them to think and live creatively. And he also encouraged those who were more well off to always remember those less fortunate on their doorsteps. Although largely a figurative painter, his landscapes, which in most instances included his signature lopsided donkey, have become iconic visual descriptions of these small Free State towns. Here in Excelsior, Father Klaarhout appears once again linked to its people and its landscape, this time in a book by Zakes Mda called The Madonna of Excelsior. The book is about a dark moment in the history of the town where in 1971 19 citizens were arrested under the Immorality Act. This was an appalling apartheid law which made it illegal for people to have a relationship across the color line. In the book, the chapters are all headed by a painting by Father Klaarhout, which kind of gives you an idea of what is going to unfold. This one is a picture and the title is She is Holding the Sun. She is holding the sun entwined in her arms. It is blazing red with streaks of yellow. She is all impasto, black and blue and yellow. The sun glows through her body, giving it patches of fluorescent red. She sits like a Buddha, embracing the sun. She's wide awake, for night has passed. Victor Geduld is a self-taught painter who paints the landscapes around Excelsior.
In die gebied waar ek groot geword het, was dit baie keer veral as jy tussen arme mense groot word. En sommige ouens gebruik dwelm, sommige, jy weet, gaan oor in moeilike gangsters en goed. En vir my was daar een ding, ander ouens het weer belang gestel in sokker. Maar ek was nie eintlik 'n goeie sportman. So my eintlike ding was eintlik kuns. Wat ek ook baie gedoen het, soos ons altyd in die stad geloop het. Het jy altyd gekyk as jy in die stad loop, jy's 'n klein ouetjie. En dan kyk jy byvoorbeeld na kunsgalerye, paintings. En ek het altyd vir myself gesê, ek wil dit eendag doen. Ek wil eendag een van die bestes is. En ek wil eendag ook skilder. Natuurtonele en alles.
Another famous South African writer who emerged from a small Free State town was Lawrence van der Post, who writes about his hometown of Philippolis in his book called Inner Province. A faint nostalgia hung in the light of ample summer afternoons. The bleating of sheep at dawn and sunset, long trails of luminous dust drifting between him and the evening sun, yellow flowers in grass round a slime-covered pool, bats flapping in and out an avenue of pepper trees, the bagpipe music of mosquitoes, the far-off mutter of thunder. Artist Adolfo McHugh is a Spaniard who lived for some time in Cape Town and recently moved to Philippolis. He's been painting this town and its surrounding landscapes ever since.
We gonna rise till we fall. They said we got no future at all. They wanna keep us out, can't hold us down anymore. We're gonna rise till we fall. But we don't know as we don't care. We wanna keep it on going till we can't go no more. We gonna rise till we fall. When we're the bottom, nothing gonna stop us, climbing to the top with you. We could be the greatest, ones who never made it, yeah, but we're talking to you. They're trying to hate, but we won't change anything at all. We gonna rise till we fall. Maybe we just don't know, living at my mom's house. Parents must be so proud, they know it all. They don't speak our language, they say we're too savage, yeah. No, we don't give up anymore. We're gonna rise till we fall. We're gonna rise till we fall. They don't speak our language, they say we're too savage, yeah. No, we don't give up anymore.
I'm here in Jukskei Park in Kroonstad, home of competitive Jukskei in South Africa. This sport was created around 1743 as a means of recreation by transport riders. It was later played by the voortrekkers on long cross-country journeys by oxwagon. They used the wooden pins of the yokes and threw them at an upright wagon wheel spoke planted in the ground. In Afrikaans, a juk is a yoke and a skei is a pin.
The game is not a game of force.
Okay.
Everybody, as soon as they take a juk in their hands, they think this thing has got to be thrown.
That's heavy, yeah.
It's just a matter of getting the momentum going.
The game is played in teams of 4. Points are allocated according to whether the stick is knocked over or how close each team's pins get to the stick.
Okay, remember, keep the shoulders up upright. Head still. Yes!
One of South Africa's most eloquent voices, poet, writer and academic, Auntie Krog, grew up in Kroonstad. She describes the area as the earth that never leaves one's soul. I drive through the outstretched plains of the southern Free State. The landscape feels ancient and clear. Everything human feels accidental and threadbare, a residue to be simply scraped off one morning from the majestic monotony. Nothing ornamental is tolerated, nothing that cannot endure so much sky. Beyond the politics of people that have shaped this beautiful but often conflicted region, there are extraordinary places which transcend beyond human foibles. spaces of long practiced ritual, tradition and spirit.
Modderpoort is one such place. In situ, it's Lichalong Labotao, the Pass of the Lions. And if you look carefully, you can see the profile of a lion's head on the side of the mountain.
Santu Mofokeng's photograph of this view from Modderpoort reveals a hauntingly still landscape under snow. It perfectly captures the spiritual serenity of this space. Modderpoort, home to the Priory of St. Augustine's, is a spiritual sanctuary where religious Western ideals and ancient traditional practice meet.
This beautiful Anglican church of St. Augustine's, built out of Free State sandstone, marks the arrival of the first missionaries in 1869. Mansopa Maketa is the famous Sotho prophetess. She was born in the late 1700s, but she received her calling to divinity at a very young age. Her most famous prophecy was her vision of the Battle of Hale between the British and the Basotho in 1852. As her powers of prophecy increased, she was exiled by King Moshoeshoe, who feared her growing influence and power. Her gravesite is constantly visited and it's a source of inspiration for all the worshippers who come here. She's also the only black woman to be buried among the Anglican forefathers, as well as the other white locals here at Modderpoort. On the last day of August, Anglicans from all over South Africa make a pilgrimage to this amphitheatre and the cave church up ahead. The cave church has a long and interconnected history. It was first inhabited by San hunter-gatherers, and later it provided shelter and a place of worship for the missionaries from 1867 to 1870.
We're on our way to one of South Africa's greatest spiritual sites, on the outskirts of Clarens.
This cave was originally reserved for Sangomas only, who came here to live and learn after they were called to the site, usually through dreams. There are about 13 people who are living there currently, but this number fluctuates from time to time depending on who's called to come to the site.
Santu Mofokeng's photographs of religious ceremonies and rituals in this and another cave near here form part of his ongoing series called Chasing Shadows. His masterful treatment of contrast and light creates images that are mystical, ethereal, theatrical, and at the same time strangely obscure. Another photographer, Glenn Green, also captures the strangely quiet drama of this space. The flood of light which forms a backdrop to the dark cave is like a spiritual presence. This is Taba Tabadimo, elder and headman of this cave, healer and prophet, who's been living here since 1986. Dumelang tat.
Godon tat.
Likai.
Re teng ha se wena mfela.
Re tsogile. Ntate awungitshele le ndawo uzeleni la ufunani la
kabitswa udikisa la
wabitswa
yeah
okay le ndawo inomoya
inemoya uba uNkulunkulu uye le ha ubitswe lapha asa ukhuluma nawe la futhi usawuthuma ibana ubi usawuthuma abakhulu bakho bo sisters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Abantu abahlala la izangoma noma
sangoma abaprofeti
amaprofeti
yeah wonke inhlobo lezi
kuyisikolo
isikolo
obani umfundisi wena
mina ngimfundisi kulaba bami
bakho abantu bakho
yeah
okay
yeah la amanzi itulela khona la bendabeni incwabeni la
asemncwabeni abantu
bonke la
okay
yeah
aziki ipoke lapha
pokozini ufuna isipoko wena
angifuni isipoko
ayikho nento leyo abakhulu kuthiwa
ungene ethunini yabantu ungabazi
uzawuba yazi isikhathi bakhuluma nawe
bayakhuluma nawe
abasabakhuluma nawe usolilapha ulele khona uzaba yazi
okay
ubathi awubayazi lapha ikhotla la
ikhotla
yeah.
You know, coming to the Free State, I was expecting something quite different. Something harsh and dry, conservative, steeped in politics. In fact, I found something totally different. Something calming and at times even spiritual. For all its troubled past, the Free State can be very proud of its diverse beauty and its people who work the land and who live through it and who have created a rich legacy for future generations. This is a good space.
Lofprysing. David Jantjies deel hoe belangrik vergifnis vir elke gelowige is. Kenilwe Hope encourages us to rejoice in the forgiveness of God.
So that I can glorify you, so that Christ can be evident to people that indeed He heals broken hearts.
Lofprysing, Sunday morning, 10:30 on 2.
Hello. My naam is Voete of Ricardo Voete Malgas. Ek speel Winnie se broer in die nuwe telenovela Paradys op SABC 2, 7uur elke weeksaand maandag tot Vrydag. En ek hou van dans. Ek perform baie in die hele community. Ja, julle gaan dit love. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.